Look at what John says in the very beginning of his gospel as he's wanting to tell the entire world of this amazing thing that they've been waiting on. It's finally happened. John 1:14. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory as the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. John writes this to convey something that others were saying something very different. This is a time when not everybody will obviously believe this, but they also had their own beliefs that they were trying to put over this. The Gentiles, for example, had many messiahs. You may be shocked to find out during Jesus' time there were other people claiming to be the Messiah, and they were that way afterwards, of course, in greater numbers. But this is the way things kind of were. And so John is writing and he's saying, listen, I want to explain something to you. Something happened to us by the Spirit. Because of the Spirit of God, we're able to now understand and look at this person called Jesus, and we see him and we know something about him. And the one thing that we know is that he is the truth. This word aletheia, it means truth, and it doesn't mean truth in the way that you and I know it. It doesn't mean the opposite of a lie. We hear truth and we think, oh, not a lie, got it. And that's not what this word means. This word also doesn't mean that it's some kind of counterbalance to grace, that it's grace and truth. And I feel like that's commonly how this verse is used, right? It's the kind of, God's not just all grace. No, there's the law too. There's the truth. There's the rights and wrongs. And that's not at all. And I want to demonstrate that that's not at all what this verse means. No, John is trying to say that this word, by the way, aletheia means what is real. It means absolute reality. And the way that all of us have perceptions that may seem like realities to us, John is saying, yeah, you can perceive whatever Messiah you want. This one is the Messiah. We've seen it because something incredible happened to John that was out of this world. See, grace is something the world has never seen before. John was one of those people who had never seen this thing called grace before until suddenly he was standing in a garden with Jesus and Jesus just lit up. I mean, he just transfigured in front of him. Can you even just imagine being there for this moment where Jesus, this like very ordinary looking guy, kind of a bum, I imagine him kind of looking like, and all of a sudden, just like God on earth, like you're freaking out in that moment. And John in this moment says something incredible. He says, listen, we're sitting here and all of a sudden, it turns into like a lightsaber in front of us and we're like, what do we do? And he goes, the weird thing is we didn't go inward. We didn't look at our sin. We didn't in this moment start feeling guilty and oh my gosh, look at what I'm wearing. And none of those things happened. John says in the very first chapter what happened. No, what happened was we were overwhelmed with truth. We were overwhelmed with reality. There was no doubt that this is the Messiah because, hello, lightsaber. Hey, this is him. And he says, no, this is realities right in front of us. And the overwhelming feeling that we're having is grace, is what we're experiencing. We saw into reality, and what we saw is God is filled, no room left for anything else, with grace and truth. Oh man, this word grace doesn't mean anything what we know it to mean. Charis, this word that means something beyond what we typically associate. We think of grace as undeserved forgiveness, like I'm going to give you grace. I will give you grace for your mistake. Or no, that's mercy. And let me explain this real quick. In Exodus 34, we see that the Lord is full, it says, of mercy, full of grace. He's full of both of these things. Mercy is best understood as compassion towards another person or pitying someone, okay? This would be your undeserved forgiveness, if you will, but it really means even more than that. Mercy is compassion. It comes from a heart. It comes from somebody saying, I don't care about right and wrong. I'm going to show you mercy. I'm going to give you my heart. I'm going to be compassionate towards you. If that means forgiving you, fine. If it means whatever you need, I'll be merciful towards you. It's what the Bible says, that God is merciful towards sinners. Right? He's compassionate towards them. He cares about them. He's not as much interested in the rights and wrongs as much as they would see his heart, so he gives us Jesus. He shows us mercy. But grace is the reason why he's merciful. Here's what grace means. This word charis means this. It means God's kindest blessings towards you given as a gift in Jesus. It's his inclination towards you. Jesus said it this way. He says, listen, let me tell you about my dad. He tells a story of a prodigal son, and the part of that story that I want you to gravitate towards is this father who is inclined towards his son at all times. The father was always waiting for the son. His inclination was always for the son to be blessed. And when the son shows up, the son wants to give him his story and all that, and what does the father do? He has zero interest in any of that because he's inclined towards the best for his son. Guilt, shame, all of those things, condemnation, none of those things are going to help his son. He just wants his son to feel the love of the father, and that's what we see through Jesus. Jesus shows us this about grace. It's only seen in Jesus. It's God's favor or his best extended to man that we would be blessed by him. Let me give you a short story that kind of captures this idea or thought. Here at the church, we had a year where we were taking the youth ministry, we were taking the youth group to Disney, and we wanted to go to Night of Joy. Okay, there was a concert here in town, and all these Christian bands come, and it's Disney, you know. And so we invited the youth, and we said, "Hey, let's go." And a family in our church here stepped up and just said, "Hey, listen, we would personally just like to pay for the tickets for the youth group, like for everyone to go." Now, if you don't know how expensive that is, it's very expensive. Okay, and I was just blown away by that kind of generosity. And I remember saying, I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to say," you know. And they just said, "Well, say thank you and let's move on. Like let's go." And so I said, "Okay." And so I tell the youth group, "Guys, great news. We're all getting to go to Disney. Like, do you see grace already? Like this is grace. This is some blessing coming towards you, you know." And so we're getting ready. And then they called me up and they said, "Hey, we were thinking about it. And how are you guys going to get down to Disney?" And I'm thinking, "Well, we're just going to hop in cars and things." And they said, No. We got to do this right. And how about we get a bus? We'll pay for a bus." I'm just sitting here going like, "Yeah, a bus, like right on. Like, what do we do?" And like, you know, I'm just being blown away by this, you know. And I said, "Yeah, oh, okay, great. Gosh, if I don't have to drive, that'd be fantastic. So a bus, okay, awesome." And so I'm thinking, you know, like this is great. And so then it's getting a couple days closer, and then they call me up and they say, "Hey, listen, we were thinking about it. Wait a minute. The time of day it's going to be is going to be about dinner time, and they're going to probably be hungry on the way down there. Why don't we buy Jason's lunches for everybody?" And I'm again still sitting here going, do you know how much money this is? Like, I'm thinking, like, you've missed it. And they're out of this heart of generosity. They're loving it. They're having a blast. And so, anyway, at this point now, we're showing up to the day, and we're getting onto the bus, and I'm just standing there going, wow. And I'm thanking them, and they said, "Hey, by the way," and they hand me an envelope, and they said, "Hey, we thought that the kids might want some spending money while they're there, and we put $10 each for everybody. They can go buy a shirt, buy some ice cream or whatever." And I'm just sitting there blown away by this. So the end of the night happens, and I'm on the bus. And I grabbed the little overhead thing, which I was super excited about because it was like a CB radio, you know, I don't know. You feel important. And so I grabbed it, and so I began to share this story. I said, "Guys, you guys may have no idea. You may think the church put these funds together. You may think that we somehow, you know, we wanted to bless you. No. This was a family in our church that wanted to do this, and I'm going to tell you what they did." And as I began to tell the entire bus this story, I then said, this was the reason why, is that you would know God, that you would see Jesus. And kids got saved that night on a bus because somebody was led by the Spirit to do that. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that awesome? I love it. So that is grace. That is generous blessing because of Jesus. That is what grace looks like. Do you see how offensive it is to try to make grace and truth some kind of balance with God? It bugs me when I hear that because I realize that's how it kind of reads. But when you understand the truth about what this word means, it's not mercy. It's God's grace towards you. And when John looked at Jesus, what he discovered was, what he saw because of the Spirit was, he is full of that towards you and I. God is amazing.